And this is something you learn as a creator too. You go like, am I just doing the same thing over and over again? Are people getting tired of hearing this from me? And there's a certain amount of ego and narcissism in that. Like that's why self-consciousness is so often the enemy of good art, is you're assuming that people are paying way closer to attention to you than they actually are.
Yeah.
Like you're assuming this world in which there's someone who watches everything that you do.
Yep.
And they fucking don't.
Yeah.
They're not paying close attention at all. You're not an important part of their life at all.
Yeah.
And so when you don't say things in a new way or another way, you don't repeat yourself, what you're actually doing is depriving some new person who's never heard of you at all a chance to hear that thing. I think the fear of repeating yourself is often rooted in a narcissism or an assumption that people are paying really close attention, just like imposter syndrome. People think, oh, they're trying to find me out. And it's like, they don't even know you exist.
Yeah.
Like imposter syndrome implies, or, you know, are they going to notice I wore the same shirt like 8 days apart? And it's like, no one is outfit tracking you.
Right.
You don't exist to them. And so that sort of self-consciousness, that belief that people are following what you're doing very closely, it actually prevents you from doing good stuff that can resonate with people.
Do you have family members that follow very closely, or do you have anybody in your life that's like watches everything and all of a sudden you're getting unsolicited advice from corners where you're like, I have to unhear that?
Yeah, sometimes it's like your mom is not representative of your audience.
Yeah.
At this point, my wife, there's just too much of it, and the idea that she would read my 16th book, you know, is insane and delusional to ask. So it's actually gotten into a nice place where we're finally like free of like, did you see this? And then I'm hurt that she didn't see it because we're just like, this is just too much. Like, it'll be like, hey, by the way, you should actually see what we posted today. I wanted your opinion on it versus like the assumption that you're carrying because it's just too much. You do it long enough and it's just too much to ask of one person.
Yeah. I'm still in that space where, because I'm still a solo artist, I need the feedback. I can't ask her to watch a YouTube and listen to a podcast and all these things. I'm just trying to like scatter everywhere at this point. But I will get calls from my dad that's like, hey, you probably don't want to hear this, but you know, be careful of the vocal fry on these things. When you like, I'm like, dude, I can't, like, I appreciate it, but, and he knows it too, but like that, I feel like I get stuck in that conundrum of some people with all the best intentions will get into every single nook and cranny. And some people in your life that you may not want to hear everything that you say because there's some things you want to say that you don't want their permission for.
Sometimes it's about them.
Yes. Or you don't necessarily need them to say, oh, I didn't know you felt that way the other day. I'm so sorry about this. Or, hey, are you okay because of this? Like, do we need to have a serious conversation?
Yeah, I don't want to process this with you. Me doing it was me processing it.
Exactly.
We don't need to chat.
And
especially early on. And you kind of sometimes you have to have a conversation sometimes with people, or particularly people in your life, parents, depending on your relationship with them, where it's like, hey, this is what I do.
Yeah.
And this is not only what I do, this is my life. And so you're not going to like everything that's in it.
Yeah.
And I definitely don't need your permission. So like, it might be better for you not to pay close attention.
Did you have that conversation with people?
Yeah, you do. And I met, like, for a comedian, it's I think a good example. It's like, look, I have to make fun of the things in my life, including the people in my life. So like, maybe this isn't a part of my work that you're a part of for both of our sakes, because it comes back to that self-consciousness. You want all the things that and I don't have a lot of examples, but there's just a few things here or there in my work that if I could do over again, I would. And a lot of them I can trace back to, and often it was people that I don't care that much about, like not just people I know, as opposed to like people who I'm close with, where I was thinking in the moment what they were going to think about it. And the whole point of art is it's supposed to dispense with all of that. It's supposed to be truth, right? So not, hey, if I do this, what will you think and how will it go? You're supposed to say what you want to say and capture what you're trying to capture. that how's this going to play is not a helpful sort of layer to add on top of it.
Yeah.
And so you want to strip that out. And yeah, sometimes you have to have some not so fun conversations with people. And like not feel guilty about it. It's like, look, if they wanted to come off better, I forget who said this, but it's who wrote Bird by Bird? Oh, Anne Lamott. She was like, if they wanted to come off better in your work, they should have been nicer to you. You know, like so feeling like the stuff that happened to you in your childhood or truth or experience is like, it is what it is.
Yeah. I'm struggling with that a lot right now for a couple of different reasons. One, on the comedy side, if I want to, or like almost comedy and beauty, I find can have this really interesting, perplexing, how do I get this to come off the right way and not offend the people in my life? Where it's like, this is funny, but because we think life is funny, not because I'm making fun of you or I think I want to disparage something. This is just the moment, and I've gotten better at that. I think especially just because the people in my world are still kind of like, what the hell's going on? Like, this is all very odd that all of a sudden people recognize you in public and those kinds of things. And they kind of get on the beauty side. I'm still struggling with it a little bit where I want to be able to show my mother-in-law coming down the stairs in her curlers in this environment of a home that she has created and lived in for decades. But I don't want her to feel self-conscious if I'm take out my phone to get a clip, because I find it to be this like beautiful slice of life moment. But then people, I think, understandably are like self-conscious of how am I being captured right now? And then how is that going to come across?
Yeah.
And even if I'm not paying attention to the comments, did they, like those types of things.
Video and social media is harder because, if you're a musician or if you're a writer or you're a filmmaker, you are recreating the experience in a new medium as opposed to capturing it as it's happening.
Yep.
So in that sense, you do need more permission because you're not using someone's likeness, you are using them, right? And it also disintermediates you. It takes you out of the moment because you're experiencing the thing, and then you have to set the camera down to recapture it or walk past it or whatever. There's something. That's why social media is, I think, a tough medium to be a creative in and not like start to live in a fake world. Yeah. So that can be really tough. Yeah. Like one of the ways I think it's like I spend a lot of time with my kids. They're central to my life, but I've decided that like I'm not going to use them on social media, like their faces. So it just means that if I do want to show something, there's almost to capture the realness, I almost have to create a fakeness of like everyone turn away, but it's just a decision I made to sort of have some boundaries. And I think you can kind of make some boundaries and then be clear about them and then just sort of have that there. That's probably how I would think about it.
Yeah. It depends on the moment. There's been times where it's like, this is just happening and they have to give me benefit of the doubt at this point. Now that I've built up hopefully enough trust that they see that what I do is try to bring that, hey, this can be anybody in this moment. And the fact that it is raw and natural makes it what it is. And if I try to recreate this, it's going to be crap or it's going to look fake or they're just not going to see the authenticity in it. And therefore it wasn't worth recreating. Yeah. And I can just stick those moments in my back pocket. The other conundrum in this space that I've found is, and this actually happened yesterday, I got a text message as I was getting on the plane to come down here from an old friend in HR. And it was about, I did a post where I talked about compensation. And I knew that talking about compensation is, somewhat of a...
It's like a third rail. You're just not allowed to mention it.
And it's so funny too, because you've got these platforms like LinkedIn that are supposed to create these open worlds for people to have an understanding of what their different career paths could be, and they can learn a little bit and they can connect, etc. But yeah, compensation is kind of off the table overall. And I understand why it raised some questions, but then I kind of go back to the complicit element of it of, will you let that impact you? But then I go back and forth where I will sit there and I'll, think about, how can I take what I learned over the past 20 years in corporate America and help other people with that? But then what is so-and-so going to say about this story? Because they might even if nobody can ever connect the dots between those people, if I talk about compensation and then my team is like, and apparently, well, if we're not going to backfill his role, look at how much he made. What are we doing with all those dollars kinds of things? And I'm like, oh, I don't want to fuck up their day by doing that. And then you kind of get stuck, and that can be its own spiral.
Yeah, I think one of the things I learned, so I wrote for a long time, and then in 2016 I started Daily Stoic. And I think Daily Stoic started with a few thousand people. And, I'd put out the email and then people would reply, and I kind of wanted to see what people were saying and thinking. And then, then it was 100,000, then it was a couple 100,000, and now it's like 1 million people a day. At some point you realize, oh, this is an unhealthy amount of information. Mm-hmm. That is the audience, their feedback, their thoughts on it. It's just an inhuman amount of feedback, and you will be paralyzed if you access it.